I have been. Oh, it says I need more light. Yeah, how's that? I have been remembering the story of the Minotaur um, in ancient Knossos, Crete, underneath the labyrinth, was the beast that was hidden away, and the Cretan Minoan civilization, which was the dominant civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean, would get Athens and other places like that to send tribute of young boys and girls to go and do the bull dance and then there's the story of Theseus, where he goes and he fights this monstrous beast that is contained in the depths of the palace, and what a fascinating, profound myth that is, that we seem to all have inherited from them pagans, the notion of a beast, a monster, in the belly of the beast or something like that, some below us that wants to devour us and has got huge horns and all that stuff. Anyway, I watched The Bike Riders. It's a terrific movie, Tom Hardy movie that one waited for, because one does wait. I do anyway, for his movies. Austin Butler was in it, Michael Shannon was in it, Jodie Comer was in it. And it's just interesting more than I'm not raving about it. It's just a very interesting, good movie. But what is that? What is that? What is it that draws a Tom Hardy to projects like this, like his own Taboo that he wrote himself? What is this biking compulsion, this Minotaur fascination, this gang compulsion? What part of me is that? What part of you is that? What is it? What are we seeking there? Primal man sitting there in a bar in the middle of the day, drinking cheap beer and chasing with whiskey? I don't know. I have done that. It gets old, but there is something we're seeking in it, stripped of effeminizing sophistry, the softness of civilization. Or we might do the thing that we do, which and the film does, which is that we decide that the biker world is beneath us. It is what stupid people do. It is base, with base behavior, that is famous. It rings bells today, doesn't it? It is the uneducated, the working class, the people Eric Fromm insists Marx was talking about when he wrote about the proletariat, and that they are condemned to be monsters by their alienation, their labor, their bosses, I guess they're minotaurs. As far as I can tell, Marx thought the proletariat should have the political power, the dominant political power. He didn't think, as Thomas Jefferson did, that rule by the mob, the Jeffersonian Minotaur, would be dead disastrous. He thought it actually might work, shock horror, much better than what we have today. It's what this last election now represents. It's often occurred to me that the meritocracy, in fact, the elitocracy, has been in charge of my countries, both of them, for all my life, and it hasn't really worked very well in some rather large areas of justice, etc., while all the time we are being told how much worse it would be if the lawyers weren't in charge. I don't know. No one does, but I do know what I can say simply in making my democratic decision. For instance, support of genocide was a damn red line. For some mysterious reason, for some people, the same ones who the mob terrifies, the Minotaur terrifies, the red line doesn't exist, and they will not answer the questions, so I assume genocide is low on their red line meter. After reflections, I have to say, I know you're not. The bike riders, the truckers of this world, have reasons for disliking you that are rational and not monstrous. Still you shriek, why? The Rome syndrome, for want of a better term, applies. Roman citizens were terrified of their slaves, of the peoples north of the Alps, the Gauls that Caesar butchered, south of the Mediterranean, the Hannibal world. If you don't know why, you should burn your diplomas. Their dealing with their terror should sound familiar. Genocide. Good old Julius. They didn't have Christianity trammeling them, their consciences. Apparently, neither does the USA today when it comes to Islam or Arabs. You should know the discrepancy since you dislike the bikers so much. Use them rather pathetically as an explanation for a world gone wrong, while who is in charge? Who was in charge? Who has been in charge? Not the bikers. Disrespect them enough to imagine that working class work is mindless and makes people mean, a lovely mistake made so poetically about the miners of Wales. I understand, I think, Tom Hardy. I'm a great admirer of this boy's work as an actor, an explorer. I might be wrong. I've not met him and wouldn't pry if I had, but he speaks of parts he plays as explorations. So in a sense, we have a biker film that explores that community. And as Tupac says, there is a gangster in all of us. There is a biker in all of us. Now, Michael Shannon has a speech in it. Oh, he's a fantastic actor. But I'm not convinced. It is brilliant, but I'm not convinced. Those two are often go together because the truth of his person, his role is inarticulate. So his speaking is hesitant and jerky. It's a performance of the inarticulate, which is therefore inarticulate. I only caveat this because I have heard inarticulate people be articulate. I've heard them flow. We don't see this in movies. Why? But he says a thing anyway in his speech. He says, Pinkos, college students in shorts and tennis shoes. He refers to as Pinkos. The character says that he makes things with his hands and doesn't trust people who don't. They are Pinkos. It brought me up short, that one. Perhaps why I mistrust the investor Bitcoin class growing and growing. People who don't just make nothing, but fight for their right to make nothing and be incredibly rich in the Democrat fold. We have all been inarticulate. We were children once, all of us. Are we not so valuable in that phase? Isn't it nearer the truth that the more we learn to express what we think, we shorten our capacities elsewhere? And do we express what we think? Is that really what we are doing? Or are we often at war and with the better arguers have the nuclear bombs, except they must use the bombs? There seems to be a desire out there to silence the people who don't talk like we do, a nuclear desire, because at last, maybe for the first time in history, people who think not like us are catching up in the articulation camp. There are a lot of bikers speaking about bike riders on social media. They do not sound like Shannon or Hardy. I'm sure some do, but the filmmakers are looking into a parallel world they have imagined that they do not know. On that level, it is really, really good stuff. The material obviously has charisma. Part of it seems to be attached to the sophistication of the educated utterance as opposed to a simpler and often more truthful speaking of the not educated, also appropriate. As I put things out in this turbulent time and people disdainfully chide me for not voting how they did, they have no response to she's a very enthusiastic supporter of not just genocide, but the cultures and politics that lead inexorably to genocide. Racist culture, a civilization that thrives on racism, and she is trying to be the spokesperson for it. Why? That perhaps their existence in and indoctrination by the greatest settler colony ever on earth makes them unaware. Perhaps lying is survival. Does boggle my mind that Obama and Harris have drunk the exceptionalist Kool-Aid to the lees. Why did the Democrats so purposefully shut out Bernie Sanders? he was implicit attack. His recent rumblings sound like exasperation to me. How can you Ivy Leaguers be so stupid, he seems to say. Well, it's easy when you have spent your life needing to convince yourself you're not stupid. And as one woman put, I have my educational accolades to prove it. Look up accolade. I keep thinking this about the election. The people who talk like Harris voted for her. The ones who talked like Trump, plus the ones who don't talk like Harris, voted against Harris. I find it vague and full of sophistry. I didn't vote for either.